Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports Psych Show. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I'm speaking with rugby coach Jonathan Pendlebury. Jonathan, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Really, really excited to be talking with you. We've been trying to get this done for some time. You've been super busy with the England under-18s rugby team, with the Six Nations and various tournaments. So really looking forward to unpacking your coaching process and adding in some psychology into the mix. So let's do so. We'll start where we always start. I'd love to know a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. Thanks, Dan. Jonathan Pendlebury, full name. Married, coming up nearly 12 years married, which I'm pretty proud about. But yeah, been long-term relationship with Donna, my wife, for 12 years, but been together sort of 17 years or so. Husband, father of 3 children who are all sport active, enjoy school. So yeah, fantastic young family that's growing up. So yeah, dad as well, and as you just said, work for the RFU as head coach of the England under-18 men, and yeah, something again, proud of my family, but certainly proud of where I've got to at the moment, and hope to continue going and working within the RFU and working with the England under-18 young lads that are coming through. I always think the next best young lads that are coming through in the country. Just building up to that, I did play professionally for Rotherham Rugby Club, my hometown rugby club where I'm from in South Yorkshire. Proud of that, for playing for them for 2 seasons. Played at Gloucester. Played with Leeds, where I ended up finishing my career in Leeds, and unfortunately having to retire through injury and concussion. So I'm well aware of the challenges that might bring, or pitfalls, or even scares that it might bring as well. Would like to have played an awful lot longer. Would like to have played for a higher level. Woke up every morning trying to play for England. Never got there, but knew that I'd have to have more paydays after rugby than I had in it. And yeah, retired in 2012, had been voluntary coaching from early 2000s all the way through, volunteering, then starting to take on a few more formal positions, whether it was one evening a week somewhere or a bit more regularly with our community team in Leeds at the time, to then getting into a position where I was able to volunteer a lot more hours with the academy in the late 2010s, with Leeds Academy, as it was back then. Then was able to accept a formal position. So yeah, been coaching full-time professionally as a paid job since 2012. Volunteering, part-time coaching previously before that. And yeah, as I said, I was figuring it out quite quickly that I'll need more paydays after playing rugby than I was able to get in it. Wanted to figure out whether I was any good at it. So went through level 1, 2, 3, 4 coaching badges from 2002. I think I actually took my level 1 RFU, and then applied to Open University to do a sport coaching foundation degree alongside whilst I was playing. Applied for the level 3 RFU award, got on the level 3 RFU award, managed to complete that when I was in the early stages of my coaching in the academy. A lot of contacts and networks and opportunities that you're seeing there, and opening your eyes, realised I wanted to formalise and complete my foundation degree. Went to Leeds Beckett University, working with the guys there, completed my undergrad in 2015. Again, was wanting to get better and better and think, am I any good at this? I want to still improve what I'm able to do to try and offer it for the Yorkshire lads, the best Leeds lads. Finished my undergrad off, applied for the level 4, and yeah, then opportunity came up to go to Wasps Academy and head up Wasps Academy as academy manager there. Went down to Wasps. Me and my family moved down there. Exciting new challenge, exciting new opportunity. London Wasps had just moved up into the Midlands at the time, a new regional area. And yeah, from that, we were able to sort of establish a brand new academy in the Midlands. Some fantastic support of the club at the time, some fantastic coaches on and off the pitch, backroom staff on and off the pitch, that we were able to sort of establish that there. And then the opportunity came up to get a job and interview for the position of within the England rugby pathway for the men's development side, and to be the head coach of the England under-18s. And in amongst that as well, trying to be a husband and a dad, coaching at Wasps, applying for the job, took myself back to university as well to again think I need to stay ahead, I need to stay current, and I want to just upskill myself. And yeah, from 2019 to just recently, October, and it is important because it took me ages. October 2023, I managed to complete my master's degree. Again, something very proud of, and certainly something that's added to my career so far, and supporting me to certainly be coaching at this level. So that's probably me in a bit of a whistle-stop nutshell, maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that journey, and the journey is still young, right? And I want to take you back right to the beginning in many respects. I'm intrigued to find out from you how becoming a volunteer coach and going through your level 1 whilst you were playing, whilst you were striving to play for England, you were striving to be the best that you can be, and you also set off on this journey, the beginnings of the journey, the coaching journey. Did your level 1 and you were volunteering. Did the beginnings of your coaching journey positively impact your playing at that time? Or did it add to the noise?
I think it added positively.
It added positively. Unpack that for me.
Certainly gave you an appreciation of the time and effort that coaches put in. So whether that's, and even I've probably missed off one of the more important roles I've got as well is volunteer coaching at my middle son's under nines Hinckley Rugby Club on the Friday nights and the Sunday mornings. But yeah, whether you're coaching at that junior community sport level, or it's just a fun camp, it doesn't even have a playing outlet of a weekend, for example, or a competition phase, even if it's just a fun. I think just giving an appreciation of the time and effort that somebody puts in to organise a practice, because at that level you could be organising the kit, organising the fixtures, organising training, organising the opposition, managing player and parent and supporting that way, picking the team, getting players involved, managing game time, etc. Or in a position where I might be now heading up, but I've got specialist coaches, I've got department leads, I've got assistant leads, I've got the full multidisciplinary team working all together and organising 26 players to go to South Africa in August. But it's still the same. So whether it's community level or senior international level, and the senior England rugby squad are going down to Japan and going across to Japan and down to New Zealand, it gives you a greater appreciation of what is going on. And however many players I hear, I'd love to be given £1 all the time when they all say, "You're busy, you coaches, aren't you?" I'm like, yeah, we are.
Life is certainly packed when you're a coach. It's really interesting what you say there. Okay, so it gave you a greater appreciation of what it is to coach. Did it, I suppose, taking more of a detailed viewpoint of your playing, did it help you see more and do things more effectively? Did it help you execute your actions more effectively? Did it help you sensorially see more, feel more on the pitch?
I think for possibly, I could only talk down of areas where I saw as a strength in my game when I was playing. It certainly probably allowed me to draw those dots a bit better there, where whether it was a skill breakout, a little drill break, an isolated drill, a block drill, whether it was just some randomized practice that you're thinking, right, this is 1v1, this is 3v3, or it could be a facet of the game. This is an isolated line out, this is an isolated scrum, this is a ball carry, this is a tackle. to then when we took it into a greater part of the game, it probably allowed me to then step back and think, oh yeah, I understand why we're working on this. Or especially when you're working on some of those skills when you've got more time at certain periods of the year where it might have been pre-season or international blocks. So the internationals were away, so the club could spend a little bit more time on some skills through the week, Monday to Friday, rather than just preparing the team for Saturday coming. And understanding, yeah, I can see why we're working on this now, and maybe thinking ahead of where we could get to. That's how it helped me.
That's really interesting, and I'm going to put my sports psychology cap on straight away, and therefore suggest that it helped with the declarative knowledge. We might use that term. So I understand what this activity is for and what I'm trying to do, but you're not necessarily saying there that it necessarily increased your procedural knowledge, as in how to do it.
No, I don't think so. And back then, I look at some of the software that we've got now. Even we record a game down, or we record training again to use as a learning tool.
Yeah,
we have a tight camera, we have a wide camera from the side, we have a rear camera, we might have a drone camera looking it from above, or at least a bigger, wider picture. That then we can download it, show the whole footage, chop it up, and clip it. We didn't have that, and at some of the clubs, I remember Rotherham, we had a videotape of the game. But the video, we never had training recorded.
right.
But the videotape of the game might have been if the game was on Sky Telly. Now, bear in mind that Sky Telly only showed one game at a time. So if you went on Sky, you didn't get, or you just got a raw recording. So then seeing it and thinking, well, yeah, I know why we're doing it, but I don't know how. Because maybe at the time I was 19, 21, 23. I didn't know. And it was only then through how practice was set out again. You got one lead rugby coach, an assistant rugby coach, one physio, one medic. That was pretty much you might have had an analyst, you might not. Whereas now there's at least, I think of what we've got in our under 18 staff to run a game. We're a staff of 9 full-time employed staff. We've got assistants and consultants that come in at specialist areas. But yeah, it probably gave me an idea of what we were working towards, but not always why we were doing it. Now, is that because it's not been set up and explained by the coach, or coach didn't want us to know necessarily for whatever reason? But then also again, I was probably good and okay at joining the dots on areas where I was strong at, but then not in other areas where I wasn't. I saw myself more as a defender than an attacker. I saw myself more of a line-out forward, a lot more of a line-out forward than a scrummager, as examples. So I'd be probably paying more attention to getting those areas better of my game, or trying to upskill in the other areas, but knowing that the stronger areas were my strengths.
And I was going to ask you if you could get in a time machine and go back to your playing days. And obviously, I'm not asking you to be disrespectful to your coaches at that time, because I'm sure they were great. But what you know now from the experiences that you've had from your qualifications, both academic and coaching, and your experiences on the pitch, what would you have needed or wanted back then as a player that you didn't necessarily get from what you know is important now?
Dan, I don't mind saying this, and I'd happily have conversations. Is one, look, there's a few big drivers for me of coaching, and one of them was I've looked at some of the coaches, and I don't think this is probably the forum where I want to go into it. And I thought, you know what you did there was bloody good, or I can see what you were doing, and I enjoyed it, and it was great, and it got everything out of everybody. But there was certainly other times, and this was a big driver, is I thought that certain coaches could have given more or given differently.
Okay.
And I looked at it and I thought, you've got so much inside you and you just can't hold a conversation, or you just don't know how to approach that player, or you're trying to treat everybody the same. And I think you do have to treat everybody differently. And I know people might say, treat people how you would want to be treated yourself. And I understand what they're saying by that, but I don't think that necessarily works, because they might not want to be treated like you. And or you approach that player in that way. And yes, you have to have standards and expectations, and yes, everybody has to be buying in, and for the common goal, and you all, like, fostering the environment creates it. But I think there was some coaches, the experiences that I had with them, good, bad, indifferent, and even some of the coaches that has driven me to this big driver. I had some really good times with them, but I think there could have been more that you could have given. But that might have been their skill set, and then they weren't able to draw on that. They might not have been aware of that themselves. It might have been that they were aware of it and they just thought, I need to stay away from that because that's not a skill set of mine, or that's not a strength of mine. But they didn't have anybody else picking it up. And I know I ain't going to be a master of all areas, but I'd like to think, certainly through, and that's why I went down that academic route of the foundation and the undergrad, and then certainly what the masters has given me is that having a better decision making, and knowing what to draw on. What is my knowledge? What is my experience of this situation now, coaching since, like, professionally for the last 12, 13 years. And then in the development space that I am in, because it is different to the senior professional performance space. And they're saying, right, well, what do I need to know? And then what I don't know is what do I need to draw on from other people? But yeah, I think that was a big driver for me, and saying, yeah, like, some coaches, I'm sure, I thought that was crap. I didn't like that. I think you could have done it better or different, or we all had done it differently.
That's really interesting. So I want to reflect back some of the things I've heard there. You frame this in terms of doing more and doing things differently. From your experiences playing under the remit of your coaches, you perhaps reflect back and consider coaching from the perspective of some can't hold a conversation or struggle to hold a conversation, maybe need to broaden their ability to know how to treat a player. Individual differences shines through for you in terms of respecting individual differences. Perhaps an overarching theme here is having more tools in the toolbox, so you can make more effective decisions, more tools on the table. As a mutual friend of ours, and probably one of your lecturers at Leeds Beckett, Dr. Andrew Abraham, who's been on the show a couple of times, talked about when it came to professional judgment and decision making, having more tools on the table in front of you. These things feel like they're imperative for you. And I think it's interesting, and I don't know if I'm going to formulate a question, so just feel free to come back at me, but there feels a neat combination there of, appreciating the person, so the individuals, but having a wide array of tools around the technical, tactical, physical, and the mental, psychosocial side of things.
I think so, and that is the foundation of the basis of my background and understanding of it. And look, I see it quite layman's done, and I've obviously read an awful lot of research, and I've read an awful lot of journals, and I've done an awful lot of research through tasks and dissertations that I've had to do. But I see it very, very layman in my own head, and yeah, approaching the athlete as that psychosocial being, as is often referenced in the Leeds Beckett approach to coach development. And look, I'm a big caveat of it, of having some two brilliant times through degrees that I've got from there. But I think in the development space, I think all coaches are aware of the tech, tac, physical, mental, social. They're all aware of it. But I think what is on their agenda at certain times to maximise development or maximise learning, and then certainly performance at that top end for professional is different. And the bit for us in the development space is we're not necessarily judged on winning and losing on Saturdays, but certainly across a period of 6 months and even as long as 6 years of where has a player come from and started to then where he is. And I say he all the time because I'm just working with males, but then where he's going and what he's got now to what he needs in the future. And it is always that constant needs analysis of what does he need for what's next, meaning a school or a club game on a weekend, or what is next year, or what is next in terms of age group or expectation. But yeah, definitely. What skills, what tools have I got in my kit bag that then I can go back to, and not just pulling out a pair of grips and hitting it like a hammer? That I know that actually this is how I can use this skill set or approach with this group, with this player, or coaching this technique to get the best out of a group before.
I'd love to play with that idea, the difference between the professional level and the developmental level. The vast majority of coaches listening in will be at that development level that you speak of there. And it feels like you're broadening the horizon when it comes to the development level. It doesn't have to be now. It broadens out into the future. If we were to, I mean, I suppose fractionally putting you on the spot and putting you under a bit of pressure here, but if we were to play with this idea of if you were jettisoned into the England rugby first team, I'd be keen to explore coach behaviours. You can go session design if you want, but coach behaviours versus the coach behaviours you engage with now for the England under-18s, where you've perhaps got that longer, broader viewpoint. What kind of things, what would be the differences in coach behaviours, do you feel? Just playing with the idea.
Playing with the idea. So if you're saying if you're going to, you've just got me a first class ticket on to Japan and then New Zealand. Is that what you just said?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it would be that I'd be saying, right, how many days until the next World Cup? How many sessions until how many games until the next World Cup? How many sessions until the next World Cup? Right, let's work back from that, because my approach would be that's what you're going to judge me on.
Okay.
Now, it might be that if you are in that space, that you judge differently. You're judged on, yes, winning that, getting to a finals, and whether you win by somebody having a blinder and scoring a hat trick, or the referee making a wrong call, or somebody missing a tackle and somebody gets through and you win it flukily, or you win it because you're the best team. But they might also be judged on winning overseas tours, summer tours. They might be judged on winning Grand Slams. They might be judged on winning every Six Nations game up until that point. But I think, like what I often said to some of the head coaches, the DORs that I've worked with when I've been in the academy space, is how can I help you in 3 days? Meaning, what do we need for a young player in the first team on Saturday? How can I help you in 3 weeks? Because it might be that we know that this player is going to be away, and this senior player is going to be away. This academy player needs to be ready in 3 weeks' time. How can I help you in 3 months? Similar sort of situation. We might have a summer tour, or somebody's back late from a summer tour, so this player might be starting the season September, October in the first team. How can I help you in 3 years? And that, so me looking at the World Cup and saying, well, right, if you're going to judge me on something, judge me on the World Cup, but there's going to be a bit of a rocky road, and there's going to be some choppy times up and down with success, I hope, because if we're not going 2 steps forward and 1 back at times, and we're just struggling, you're going to judge me on that. But if you can see success and you can see progress, I am. That's how I'd approach it. What is the end again? What is the end in mind? What are we working towards? What is our end in mind? Which the end in mind might be three days' time for that player who's making his first bench or first start in the Prem. It could be 3 months' time. It could be 3 years' time. As I said, you could be a 16, 17-year-old in an academy at the minute, and then you've played England under 20s and you're signing your first full contract as a Premiership player in 3 years' time. Yeah, well, again, that's me always looking at it. What is the long-term end goal?
So what I'm hearing you say there is end in mind from an outcome perspective. If you're thinking about the professional level here, and everything works in servitude to that sort of macro viewpoint, the outcome, in your sport, that could be the World Cup, that could be the Six Nations, that could be autumn internationals that are sort of on that journey as well to probably the 4-year cycle of the World Cup. So you're looking at that outcome and you're drawing down. And then at the development level, it's going to be more individual development to potentially lend itself towards those outcomes as well. So players getting the opportunity to step in and make their first team debut, and so on and so forth. From a coach behavior at the micro level, the coach behaviors, the mini behaviors, how are you interacting with somebody who's an older player versus somebody who's a young player who's developing? What do coach behaviors look like from a developmental perspective? Is there a change in behavior? Is there patience? Is the communication different, do you feel? A difference in goal setting? What does that look like? Broad question, I know, but feel free to go wherever you want.
Yeah, it might be broad because, and it we might be making a few generalisations here as well, because that senior player they only know what they know, and you might need to have an awful lot of
Yeah.
patience with them. Could be that I see the game differently in attack or defence, and I go straight in with a senior team and a senior player, and I start working
Yeah.
with them differently, and it's not what they've been used to with the previous coach or the previous club. And then you're having how many coaches go in, and Dan, you've written about it in football of it's going to take time. With football, they're always talking about transitions in football, not attack to defence or defence. They're talking about transition in managers. So,
Yes.
what patience can they afford there? What patience has the player got with you as the coach, whether it's frustrated with himself or whether it's frustrated with personal performance, team performance, and everything like that? Would you talk to them differently? Only differently in that I'd want to just be on the same level as them. So whether that they might need a bit more support in explaining of what we're working on and why we're working on it. Some might just say, yeah, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Not tell me what to do and where to stand, but just tell me what we're doing in this session, and then I can go and explore. Others might be, yeah, tell me why we're doing it. And that's probably the why bit that I do enjoy a bit more, and especially the time that we can spend with the youngest 17 to 18-year-old lads, and even the 20s, when we're in with the 20s together as a pathway group of those guys. We've got time before a meeting, right? Tell the team why we're doing this. Tell the team why we're taking this approach, or let's start joining the dots even when they think back the last time they were in camp, that might have been a month before or 3 months before, or even something that we were doing in the 18s that they're now doing in the under 20s. Why we're doing this and understanding it. So yeah, going back to, would I speak differently? Only because there were different individuals, I'd speak differently. I think they might say, I'd hope that they'd say, John, when you explain it this way or when you present it this way, I like it. When you do it that way, I don't. So then I'd be able to change something in my own coaching or approach. I'd hope that it could get to a level that way. Might be that we need to set some shorter term targets and successes again for a senior player. They might be intrinsically or extrinsically driven, so they need to see some sort of outcome where I'm changing a technique or we're changing an approach or a way of playing but I'm not seeing any success in it at the minute. So how do you measure success? Which, yeah, if I'm saying, go back to your previous conversation about if you were to be thrown into the first team, and I'm saying judge me on a World Cup, well, my bosses are going to want to see success along the way as well. So I might be, so long as I'm explicit with the group, we know what we're working towards, and then anybody who else is part of that group is, again, what is it? Is it a week goal? Is it a 6-week goal? Is it a 3-month goal? And they're probably the periods that learning slow, isn't it, Dan? The learning is slow, and how we take things on board to then short-term memory, then you're filing it through into your long-term memory. That then we're thinking, right, then they can draw on it whenever they want. It's in there. Whenever I need this piece of kit, it's in there. Whenever I need this skill or tactical approach, I can draw on it. So I'm probably used to working across 3-month, 6-month, a year, 36 month blocks with players, and then seeing where they've started or where they were to then where they're exiting an age group or they're exiting a pathway going through. But I'd always probably bring it back to what needs do they want now for what they need in the future. So if it's a senior pro who needs something on Monday for Saturday, or if it's a younger player who needs something in September for, let's say he's in an England under-18 September camp, and I've got my eye on him thinking that I want him to be starting against France in under-18 international in March, and what he needs now to what he needs in September to what he needs in March.
Let's hone in on that last point, because you said some really, really interesting stuff there. You've referred to memory when it comes to learning. You've referred to extrinsic, intrinsic motivation. You even talked a little bit about autonomy, supportive coaching in terms of getting feedback from your players. And I'd like to explore those.
And you put the words on it.
but I'd like to start by having a conversation about what you sort of mentioned at the end there. And so let's hone in on the England under-18s.
Yeah.
You have that task of the challenging task of developing individuals in a team environment. When we first started to speak, you couldn't arrange this conversation straight away because you were heading off to the under-18 Six Nations. So there's a team event there, and you can refer here to how much you want to win or how much pressure there is on you to win. But I'm keen to understand how it's set against the backdrop of trying to develop these young people as players and as people, but certainly as players. So how do you develop individuals against the team landscape there with the under-18 England rugby team?
So we have a pathway, a purpose that we want to develop players for the future England team.
Yes.
And that is obviously the pinnacle to developing future starters, future performers, future England captains. We aim to break it down through knowing our players, our who. We break it down through experience and opportunity, which is pillar 2, and then we break it down and we talk about playing the future game. So sort of three pillars that way. And again, through those knowing our players, which are our customers, if you like, they're our next best. The experiences that we want to try and test them with, challenge them with, offer them, have success with, and even failure in probably equal amounts as well, especially the appropriate challenge bit. Even reward, winning an England under-18 cap is a reward. It's massive for the boys. It's massive for the families as well. It's can often be used for a player as it was an end goal for the season. Might have been an end goal for 2 years. It's a stepping stone. But then future England. So let's say that we have got that player who we've identified him as under 17. He's 16. He's in year 12. He's come to our development camps, and we're thinking, right, well, we know what fixtures we've got in the March of their year 13 year. We know that we've got an under 18. We've got an under 18 Six Nations competition where it's not like the full senior Six Nations. We will only play 3 fixtures. However, what we do and we can offer them is through the support of our union, our RFU, is we can take them abroad. They'll live in a hotel. Mm-hmm. They'll prepare for training. They'll get up. They'll have to recover from training. They'll have to prepare for a game. They'll have to review a game. That's the experience part, obviously, on the pitch. The playing part is the experience. But the big bit for us, a huge bit for us, is going abroad and playing. even like getting on a bus on a match day where you've got your England tracksuit on is an experience that we want to give them. Starting in a game where you're singing the national anthem, or benching in a game where you're singing the national anthem, is an experience, and they're both different. To then, if you, for example, you're playing France in a Six Nations game at under 18, is that a worthwhile experience for when you play future England as an under 20? Again, another checkpoint, another marker, another measurement against yourself, another measurement against your own development and your peer group. But does that then stand you in? I've done this at under 18s, I've done this at under 20s. If Steve Borthwick and the seniors call me up in the future, I've been here before in France. I've played France in France, or I've played France at Hinckley Rugby Club, or I've played France at my school. Just again, those individual players that we know who they are with the future potential, having those experience to play the future game is huge for us, and how we'd certainly look to approach it, which I know is the same or very, very similar to other developmental pathways in individual sports or even team sports. But that is our main approach of how we do it. The three pillars of the players, the experiences and opportunities, and then of future England. And probably one of the best examples I can give, or certainly one in this space, is the England under 20s won the Six Nations this year, and we had a group. They had to go away and win in France, and they went to France in front of a huge French-dominated crowd against a very, very good French team with some senior international cap players in that French team as well. And they beat them in Pau, and they had a fantastic second half performance, particularly to sort of come back and get into the game and then stay ahead. But a lot of those players in that group 2 years prior had been in France and lost against the same or similar French team, and some come in and some come out, obviously. But yeah, we were involved. Myself and Mark Mapletoft were involved in that group 2 years prior in Saint Raphael in the south of France, and lost to a very, very good French team that beat us. That it was only because we defended well on the day that the score wasn't as big as what it was, and we lost 27. We lost 27-7. But then 2 years later, you're seeing a lot of similar players progress. You're seeing a lot of similar French players progress, and some even greater level. That then we go and beat them to win a Six Nations. We lost at an under 18 Six Nations fixture, but now we're winning when it actually mattered, and points mean prizes, and you are in a game. And Will Parkin, who's coaching with me now in the under 18s, he says to the lads, on Sunday night if you're leaving camp, or on Sunday at the end of half term when you're leaving camp, leave better. If we're in for 3 days, can we get better and better and better? If we're playing 3 games in the Six Nations and we played Wales, Scotland and Georgia, can we get better and better and better and leave better after we've played Georgia out in Parma this past April? And they're sort of big principles and pillars that we have, but then sort of drivers.
Can I interject there and shine a light on this idea of leave better? What I'm hearing you say is what's really important for you in this pathway, England Rugby under 18s, is a lot of this is experiential, giving these players experience, and the communication here is you've got the experience, leave better. What is the onus on you? What are you doing as a coach to help that, to enable players leaving better? What's your involvement here?
Try to put on the best learning. Try and facilitate the best learning moments that we can. Now, whether that is all of us as a staff group, S&Cs, medics, team ops. Fortunate that we've got sports psych support. Fortunate that we've got nutritional support. Yep. I'm not saying we've got it 24/7. We haven't, as we have some of the other departments I've just said in rugby, team ops, medical, and sports science. But all of us working together to try and create the best learning moment for that player. It might be a player who's long-term injured, that his lead coach needs to be that lead medic at that time to get them back. It might be that it's a forward that's working more with me. it's a back that's working more with will. But again, how we like to go about it in the pathway all the way from the 16s, 17s, all the way up to the 20s is how collaboratively we work with their academies. And then through their academies that we're working with the schools or the clubs as well. That it is the pathway. It doesn't mean just England pathway. The pathway means you're in the pathway if you're playing Hinkley under nines. You're in the England pathway. You could play for England. You have that ambition and motivation. There's opportunities and avenues to get there. But yeah, just Matt, what I think is our main area is how we put on the best learning moments for individual players at that moment in time. And I will always say that moment in time. And again, I can only base it upon my own background, my own experience, my own personal development, but mainly experiences with similar age group players or exactly the same age group players year on year on year of what are their positional needs, what are their game needs, what are their life needs now to what is going to stand them in greater stead in the future. And if it is selection for an under-17 camp developmentally, to then when you're getting nearer, when it's February half term, knowing in a month's time you're getting ready for a fixture. And February camp in year 13 looks very, very different to February, March camp in year 12 when it is more about developmental. The other bit, Dan, as well, I've probably not said this, is I know I've talked about the three pillars of the players, the experiences and future England, but in the under-18s, we have the overarching theme of exploring and exploring whether it is exploring definitions, and my understanding of it is it means to travel in order to learn, which I think is brilliant for us at this age group. But we've got players that are exploring positions. They might play a different position for the school to what they're playing at in the future, or to what they're playing at the club. We've got different ways of playing across school, club, academy, and England, and we're asking them to explore and go between them. But yeah, how do we try and put on what is the best learning for that player at that time across a 2-day camp or a 4-day camp that we might be able to put on? I think is the main bit.
I love the way you've answered that in terms of learning moments. We want players to have experiences, and inside of that box is having fantastic learning moments. Obviously, as you've mentioned there, this is England rugby, so those players have home academies. You've got to work. There's an extra dimension here, in as much as you're going to work collaboratively with their academies. But just coming back to your learning moments, interestingly, towards the end of what you were saying there, you've essentially drawn on what I would describe as a principle of learning, to explore different ways of playing the game. I'm really keen to hone in on, and maybe you might start thinking in your mind here about, you might draw from, the players you've been coaching over the last year. And obviously not naming names, but what are your principles when it comes to learning moments? How are you helping players learn? As Eddie Jones used to say around the coaches table, how do we change behavior? How do we change this player's behavior? You talk about learning moments, but how do you help learning happen?
Through just like any opportunity or experience or environment that tries to offer it. You're trying to introduce something. Now, whether it is somebody who just wants to get good at that bit and doesn't want to go any further, they can come and do that with us. And by that, it might be that, look, I just want to play for England under-18s, get my cap, and that is me happy, because my ambition is to be the best doctor, or to be the best school teacher that I can be, and I want this experience, but that is not me and my life. The other bit is, I want to be a world champion, I want to be a British and Irish Lion, and I want to win a World Cup. And we've got those avenues, and we've got those different pathways that will also cross as well. But I think the important bit is for how we then create that. And then what we're trying to put on, and then what we're trying to challenge them with through appropriate stretch, through appropriate challenge. And it might be that something that we're able to introduce them to is just the speed of what they're having to make the decision at, or how often they are having to execute it. Which, again, look, if we're picking the England under-18s or the seniors are picking the England senior squad, is you've got the best players in the country at that age group, or you've got the best players in the country at that time. So if you've got the better players who are more consistent and more experienced, have got the ability to execute that skill, or certainly do it more often, is that just the experience on its own? You're asking them to repeat it again, not just once every 10 efforts. You're asking them to probably get it right 8 out of 10 efforts. Or, because we are working towards, you might only have one opportunity to get that ball back. You might only have one opportunity to catch it. You might only have one opportunity to pass it or score it. So it might be that it's just affording them the appropriate level of challenge to the appropriate level of stretch, and then also as well the appropriate level of success, which again for us is obviously going to be a marker and a differentiator of what do we need this player to know now, what do we need this player to have the ability of doing now, that then sets them up to say, yeah, we want to keep working with this player because they're showing desire, they're showing improvement, they're showing the want to improve and get better. They're showing that they've got the ability and the potential. And it might be even supersedes our own expectations, that we're saying, look, we've got something very, very good here, or we've got somebody who's very, very special who could take it on even further. So we need to add something more to that individual. And then that's probably it as well, is with that player, you think, actually, I can stretch them further than what last year's group was, or last year's player was, or I have to coach this player similar to this player that we had several years ago. And that might be where people talk about generational players, or that somebody has an ability or a skill set or a physical ability or potential that is greater than others. It might even be a mentality that is greater than others. They're able to learn quicker than others. They're able to retain information greater than others. They just might be able to push themselves harder than others, and don't. And I'm not saying push themselves out harder to hurt themselves, but just repeatability. They might be absolutely shattered, but they can keep going. Others might not have that physical capacity that they can keep going. So again, is that what we're trying to explore with them? That's what we're trying to challenge them on. We're trying to they can do it technically, tactically. So we're now asking them to do it faster or more often. Others can do it physically, or because of where they are, growth and maturationally, they can do it greater than the peer group. We're now asking them to, well, look, you're not going to be able to rely on that on the next level. We're asking you to work more on your technical, tactical side of it, or usual bits. You're used to starting, you're used to being captain, you're used to being the best player. You're not the best player here, young man. Can you get over that? We still think that you've got something, but we're asking you to work on and develop a different skill set. So, yeah, again, lots of tools in the kit bag, but we need to draw on lots of resources as well from coaches around you and even support staff.
So what I'm hearing from you there, in terms of some principles of learning, challenge is really important.
Appropriate challenge, and I don't want to fluff that up, because I think often I have some jokes with some coaches that work in the professional elite environment, they'll talk about bubble wrap, they'll talk about cotton wool, and it's all tongue in cheek and everything like that. But I think appropriate challenge. I think appropriate challenge, appropriate stretch, appropriate reward and recognition, and even sometimes not getting too far ahead of yourselves, because there's weird and wonderful things that all coaches do, and decisions that they end up making to try and get a reaction, or I don't know what the right word is, or a sustained. Well, it's a change. You're looking for a behavioural change.
Yes.
You're looking for. I'm not going to start you in this game because I'm wanting to change something in your performance, or change something in your development, or change something in your attitude. But yeah, challenge, stretch, and reward. Yeah, three areas.
Challenge, stretch, reward, as you said, and recognition. You've spoken about repetition. You refer to setting goals. Can you do this 8 out of 10 times? You know, and that I'm guessing that plays towards the appropriate nature of challenge and stretch. How challenging are we going to make this? And it's going to be, as you've mentioned quite a few times in your answer, there's going to be a lot of individual differences there, depending on physical, psychological, cognitive maturation. But there's if you might have one player whom you can set quite stretched objectives, in an activity, and another player where you might have to bring down the objective. I'm guessing that's what you mean by appropriate challenge.
Yeah, I think it is, Dan, and I think sometimes, I want to say this respectfully, I think coaches up and down the country that are coaching on weekday nights, afternoons, that have got teams competing or individuals competing on a weekend, sometimes they don't actually realise some of the coaching tools that they are using, and even some of the bits where Pep Guardiola will do exactly the same as the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night coach, where he will coach Phil Foden differently to other players, because Phil Foden can do outstanding, extraordinary things with the football that others at Manchester City can't. So I am sure he'll be challenging, just a quick little whisper in the ear, right, Phil, I want you to go and do this today, to see whether he can do it, to give himself an idea of a different tactic that he's going to come up with, but then also to then just say, just want to make it a bit harder for him, because I think he's cruising at the minute. But just the same as we might do on a Tuesday night with the youngsters, where little Billy or little Susie's scoring all the goals or scoring all the tries or getting all the tags, that will say, right, you can only do it, you can't score tonight, you can only pass. But they don't see that. They don't see that Pep's doing that Monday to Friday, or Steve Borthwick might be doing that, or Phil Dowson's doing that at Northampton Saints, who's just won the Premiership. And just again, that is appropriate coaching. It's an appropriate challenge. It's an appropriate level, but it's also then an appropriate reward and recognition of it. Does that player find a different way? And under our banner, have you asked them to go and explore? Yes, we have. It might be that we have a player coming into camp that they're not able to take that much part in rugby, but we need to really, really work hard with them on the physical development. And we've got James, and we've got James Clegg physio, and we've got James Haresine, the S&C, working really, really hard with them to get them back to that level. Or we're going to take them out of the rugby because they need to be working on that level to get back to that level, so they can perform.
So the picture you're creating in my mind is almost like a top-down, bottom-up dichotomy here that draw together. The top-down being that as a coach, if I'm developing individuals in a team environment, I'm doing that through challenge and stretch. I'm meeting individuals and potentially challenging them and stretching them by helping them set quite stretched objectives in training. Your point about Pep and Phil Foden graphically illustrates that. So there's a coach driven approach to challenge, stretch, goals, reward, recognition. Equally, there's a principle of exploration, and that you ask that question, that divergent question, the one you can't answer yourself. Have you gone and explored? And I'm guessing that establishes a conversation between you and the player, and that's more the bottom up. We can give players things to try to accomplish, but we also want players to explore, and I'm guessing that's forming a conversation where you discuss that exploration.
Definitely. And again, another area. Again, look, fortunate we've got the staff, we've got the resource that we can draw. We've got Tim in our analysis department, who we've worked together for, including COVID, about 4 years now. But we've only just managed to start playing games at international level again since sort of that 2001 that rugby's opened more back out of the age group. But we've got a number of England under 18 international games that we can look back on. Tim's managed to find out some trends and traits of certain positions 1 to 15, and even just sitting down with a player in a camp and saying, "Are you aware? We know you as a player, Dan. We know you like you're more of an attacker or a defender. We know you're more of a runner than a kicker or whatever. But are you aware that because you're such a good runner, you will still need to have a passing and a kicking game? Because you're such a good defender, you will still need to have an attacking game, or this area of your position will require a greater set piece awareness as you go up through the levels. But at the minute, your school games, your club games, or even our level doesn't afford you that. So even in practice, we will practice some of these skills that you might not necessarily be able to execute when we have a fixture." And Tim sitting down and just, again, these are just averages, they're just traits, they're just trends of what certain positions, just sitting down with a player and he's like, blimey, that many tackles for my position. He's like, yeah, that many ruck clear outs, or oof, I kick more than that in a game, but this position says I don't need to kick as much. No, that's not saying you don't need to kick as much. It's saying that you have a different skill set. You're doing it a different way, and so us being able to draw on that, I think is huge, and that's a big part of the exploring piece as well. And we might be able to use some of those trends as goal sets. It might be, look, you're not exploring or you're not working on it yet. Now, it might be because the game that you're playing doesn't afford it, but through our pillar 2 experiences and opportunities that we want to give you, you will be having to do this at this level, because you'll definitely be asked at the senior level, you'll definitely be asked at under 20s and senior international level.
That's really interesting. So what it sounds like you guys have been doing through your video analyst is to create a framework of traits, behaviors, and competencies aligned with kind of floor and ceiling data points. What the best do out there, and what we should be gunning for, and that framework frames the conversation around where players should be curious. And so it sounds to me another buzz term embedded in sports psychology at the moment, and I firmly believe this is a mediator of how good somebody gets at their sport is self-regulated learning. The capacity to take charge, take control of one's learning, to be self-aware, to engage in self-control, to change behavior on one's own, depending on what the skills and competencies are that you're trying to develop. It sounds like it's bottom-up curiosity, but it's also it's framed within a top-down framework there of important data points.
Yes, but that word that you used, where you just said be curious and have a curiosity, we ain't sitting down with the lads down saying you have to have 6 carries, you have to have 10 tackles. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It is not. Yeah. It's not paint by numbers. This is Are you aware that you need to be doing this within a game? Because whether it was when the game was first invented, when just down the road from me, little William picked up the ball and ran with it in rugby school.
Yeah.
So when the game went professional in '95 to the game currently, we can all probably write down what a number 1 prop needs to do, a number 9 scrum half needs to do, and a number 15. Now, depending on how that coach wants to shape that team and within the framework that they're playing, they'll have to do a bit more of one than the other. And we've got all these dials. Whatever you dial up, we dial down. And whatever my individual skill set is, whether I'm more of a runner and a passer versus a kicker and a tackler, I'm going to do more than the other. It's just that curiosity piece is huge. And now we're trying to then sit down with the guys individually. And it might be, and a big part that we think, and certainly myself and Will is, with the rest of the coaching staff, is what can we challenge the players on and offer them an experience to explore that is different somewhere else, that then they've not just got used to this one way of coaching or this one way of playing, that then if they move club to club, or a coach gets moved departments, or a coach gets sacked, or whatever comes in, or you've got a transition, that they are more rounded players, and they are better decision makers, they are better problem solvers. I think the other side of it is when you're talking about that curiosity as well, is being self-aware and self-regulating is the player taking ownership through the development space. For me, is that player taking ownership of their own development, whether they want to just win an England under-18 cap and that is them, they are happy, or whether they want to win an England under-18 cap because they want to be a senior pro in the Premiership, under 20 and beyond. Ownership is huge. And we did some work when we couldn't coach the guys on the grass in COVID. We did some player conversations, and we were fortunate to get a number of the senior pros involved. And a big theme that was coming out, and it's probably no surprise to people listening in, a big theme that was coming out from people like Joe Ford, Johnny May, Marrow, Owen Farron. It sounds like I'm name dropping. They were all talking about taking ownership of your own development, and we will push that, whether that is you taking ownership and self-organising your schoolwork, your college work, and your rugby. You self-organising your school rugby, your academy rugby, and your England rugby, because you are, with us, you are different 16 to 18-year-olds than your classmates. They are doing rugby at a greater, higher level, and they've got to balance it. But those guys organising themselves to be ready, knowing, coming prepared to train, and they're going to have ups and downs, and they're going to have mental fatigue, they're going to have physical fatigue from schooling and rugby and everything like that. They're going to have setbacks. They could be turning up to us off the back of an injury or a back off a perceived lack of form of fitness, or even they've got the worst result they've ever had in the geography exam, and they're turning up for a camp with us. So again, goes back to that individual biopsychosocial being and everything that they are coming in, but them being ready and prepared, and so long as that they are prepared and they come and give it their all to learn and get better, that's all that we'll ask for them when they're coming into our environment. That it might not be the best camp or the favourite camp or anything like that, but they have come curious, they have come to invest in themselves, and they have come to get better. But it was really good and reinforcing for the players that we did it with at the time, when those players were saying that, regulate yourself, take ownership yourself. There's that famous clip in there of, I've seen it anyway, of Steven Gerrard. I'm not saying you have to take it to this level, but Steven Gerrard saying that he was obsessed. He says he was obsessed at being the best, obsessed at getting better. And George Ford was talking about areas of his game that he knew that he needed to develop and get better at. He knew areas of his game that he knew that he was strong at, and he still needed to get better at. But then he also knew that there was areas of his game that he needed to explore and start bringing in, because he knew that might be a differentiator that wouldn't allow him to go on to the levels that he wanted to.
When I consider biopsychosocial competencies or factors on the group side of things, I tend to talk about 3 ships: leadership, teamship, relationship. But I definitely think a 4th ship is, and this may be more on the individual side, but it's also involved in on the group side, is ownership. To speak to what you're saying, I think all those 3 ships need to be framed from the perspective of ownership as well. I've got one more question for you. I mean, it's such a fascinating conversation, and certainly on the area of self-regulation, self-regulated learning. Because we talk about so often on a Sports Site show about self-regulation when it comes to resilience and things like that, but self-regulated learning we need to talk more about. But I just want to shift slightly here to close things out, and I'd love to get your opinion on something, because I think culture is so interesting in terms of how it influences how teams play, and not least how countries play. And when I consider England rugby, that's been had its real highs and had its real lows over the past couple of decades and back further, set against the backdrop of fantastic resources. I think about, let's say, the French national team, and you might think about the Scottish as well, the kind of the tendency towards flair, whereas England might have, and I'm sure you'll have better descriptors for me because you've forgotten more about rugby than I'll ever know, but a tendency towards, technique, mechanics, strategy, that those kind of thoughts and pictures arise when I think about England rugby, whereas French, it's a Gallic flair. You're involved in the development path. Is there something about English culture? You can learn from the football team as well. Historically, the landscape hasn't been that the England football team play like Latin American teams or the Spanish teams. There's a cultural difference in terms of style of play, which maybe is underpinned by how people within that culture see the world. What do you have any thoughts on that? England versus differences in style of play, England versus France, for example. Might we ever see an England team play in that style? What's your thoughts on all of that?
What you're asking the miner's son from South Yorkshire, whose granddad was a blacksmith, who's like the typical northerner, the typical tight Yorkshireman, that of habits, behaviours, and how upbringing's formed all his values in life. I think it is, but I think ultimately it is teams, individuals that take part in sport and or take to the field. They somewhat resemble what their coaching head coach staff group is.
Okay.
Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? Is if I am a dictator in the pathway and I'm saying do tell. I think that's probably what you see on the pitch. Again, I can come back to it. We have explore as our overarching banner or approach. Explore your position, explore a way of playing, explore a way of attacking, explore a way of kicking, explore a way of defending. I can't have explore on it, Dan, and then not see the lads go and get things wrong to get it right. I can't have explore on it and then you see the lads being told what to do, where to stand, and what to do. So I think by that what I'm meaning is you see the teams playing in competitions or on the weekend of the skill set of what they've got or the capability of what the group has got, but then certainly of how maybe the setup as well from the beliefs and the approaches or the background and experiences of what the coaching group that is supporting them on. You talked about Scotland at rugby. Gregor Townsend, the head coach, he liked playing fast rugby. So you're probably seeing a fast team and a team that I think have gone on record as saying that they want to be the fastest team in rugby. They want to try and exploit you and use their weaknesses as their strengths to be crafty and be canny and all those sort of Scottish words you'll have. French rugby approaching at the minute. They've just had the World Cup. They've got the Olympics coming up. It's in their own country. They want to put on a good show. They have a certain way of playing and approach. They want to be abrasive and they want to be physical, but then they love in having that, in their words, that je ne sais quoi that comes on it as well. And that's what I've seen in the Scottish teams that we've played at age group, or I've seen in the French teams that I've played in the age groups coming through. English teams, I think we have, and you could also look at it as well, is what does league structures offer it at the top end? What do league structures offer it at the top end? How does the approach to the league, relegation or no relegation, having a top four, a top six, or how many teams qualify for Europe, and what that affords the game from how the DORs want to approach it, how bringing in, and it's a number of years ago now, but bringing in a bonus point structure for a try. I think this season you've seen more tries this season. You've seen more attacking this season. I think you might have seen more attacking try bonuses this season in the league, and how teams are approaching it. So I think there is some bits that does come from like traditions of ways of playing within countries and everything like that. But I think it certainly comes down to maybe values, beliefs, or approach, or how the individual coaches at the time want to play the game, but how they want to play the game with the skill set and the ability or potential of a group that they've got, how they end up finding a way that is similar to the wanting. They're never going to be able to play exactly the same, I don't think, unless the most visionary coach in the world has got the biggest checkbook in the world, but we haven't got that in rugby. We've got salary caps, so you can't have all the best players in the world in one team. But I think it's just probably don't know. It's complicated one to ask, but then it's just formed by my approach. I think the one for me is I can't have explore and learning and development at the core of my values and then tell a player, an individual, a unit or a subgroup, you have to do this because that is what you do in England. That is what you do in that position. That is what you do at 17. And you can't do this because you're not 20. I can't do that.
Jonathan, great conversation. Thank you. I've thrown a whole bunch of questions at you there, from socio-cultural factors right the way through to the micro detail around a coaching approach. So I really, really appreciate your honesty and your thoughtful answers. I know that everybody listening in will have been interested in everything that you had to say. Do you use social media at all? If so, how can people find you and follow you?
I'm hesitating on that because the only one I did use, and I say did, was Twitter.
Okay.
And then a few months ago, I've still got a login, but I've deleted it from my phone. I've sort of fallen out with it. I'm not on Facebook. I've never been on Insta. I don't quite understand Instagram.
LinkedIn.
And Twitter. I used to really like Twitter. I used to really enjoy it, and I used to think there's loads of nuggets on there, or there's loads of links or stories. But then I've fallen out with it, Dan, and yeah, I've just deleted it.
Fair enough. Are you on LinkedIn at all?
I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I don't know whether you just search Jonathan Pendlebury or whether it's an email address.
Jonathan Pendlebury. Yeah, that's the beauty of LinkedIn.
I think just to add, Dan, is we talked a bit about and that is a big area for me of the players taking ownership and the players who have aspirations and ambition to go and imagine it, have that dream, and then go and achieve it to whatever level it is. And that's all I want the players to do within our coaching group, and all of us in the under-18s men's coaching team. We only want them to go and have success that way through that. But I think for all of us as coaches as well, is I think whether you're just coaching on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and you're volunteering, or whether you're in formalised leagues or events, or whether you are in regional positions or more formalised positions where you're coaching full time, is just keep pushing to continue improving yourself, because the kids keep coming back. The young people keep coming back, and they are ambitious and they want to get better. And it is about development, and it is about giving them experiences that I think through sport or through coming and committing to a club, through even just turning up on the evenings or on the Saturday morning, just committing gives us so many other transferable skills, as well as being able to add into what they're going to get through later on in life. And I don't want this to go off like on a passionate speech or anything like that, but I think it adds so much value to youngsters. I think it can add so much value to us as volunteers and everything that way as well. But keep getting better, because I think the youngsters deserve it and demand it. So don't, and I think volunteering is hard and it is tough. You're not getting paid, and you are booking the bus, you are washing the kit and the bibs, and you are organising the fixtures. But just keep challenging yourself, even if it is picking up a book, even if it is coming along. And I often get told off for this, but I don't mind people coming and watching our sessions, and I'll always try and get you in. Probably gets to a point where I can't get you in and I get told off from our health and safety team, ops team, but get along to your local school, get along to your local rugby club, get along to your local Premiership club, and try and watch and try and learn, because I think the youngsters deserve it. Just even reach out to your coaches that are in the same age group as you, and work that way, and just share, just so that we get better, because I think the youngsters deserve it.
Brilliant. Well said. Fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much for today.
Cheers. Thanks, Dan.
Well, everyone, I really enjoyed that podcast, and I'd love to hear what you, the listener, think. So please do get in touch via X or Facebook or through my website, danabrahams.com, to tell me what you think of the show. And if you do have any suggestions, I'd be delighted to hear them. I'm already looking forward to next week's episode. Bye for now.